Okay. Okay, I'm here with Dr. Claire Sommers, who is the postdoctoral fellow of early modern British literature in the English department at Washington University in St. Louis. Her current book project, Chimeras, Centaurs, and Satyrs, creating mixed genre texts in antiquity and the Renaissance, argues that authors would use mythological figures such as the chimera or the satyr to symbolize the composite nature of their works. And to demonstrate that hybridity is the means of transcending existing forms of expression. Her article on the role of shadows in Plato's Cave was recently published in Arion. Claire was the creator and founding director of the Critical Theory Certificate at the Graduate Center at CUNY. She currently serves as the Exhibits and Professionalization Coordinator of the Northeast Modern Language Association and the advisor to WashU's chapter of the English Honor Society Sigma Tau Delta. So Dr. Sommers is here today to help us navigate the world of mythos, and she just corrected me in my pronunciation. Thank you. Versus logos. I look forward to hearing your commentary on the two concepts and how you see them going together in the widest possible sense.
Absolutely. Well, I think one of the misconceptions is that mythos and logos are polar opposites and don't belong together. And we should be focusing only on logos, but also, and forgetting about mythos. But one of the things that unfortunately happens in translation is that meanings of words are often lost. For example, I think mythos and logos get very, very simplified in translation. Logos is usually truth, logic, right? And mythos or mythos is falsehood, myth. And we get this very, very strict dichotomy between the two of them. But there was a lot more overlap between the two of them. If you look at either of their words, if you go to Project Perseus and you pull up the Greek dictionary version of it, especially logos, I once tried to print it out for one of my composition classes to show them the many definitions, and I tried copying and pasting it, and it was actually 15 pages.
Wow.
Of definitions for logos, and there's a wide array, and the same with mythos too. It wasn't quite 15 pages, but there are a substantial number of shades and meanings to that word, and they are definitely not as disconnected as one might have you believe. Going into Plato's Cratylus, for example, as a dialogue that was all about language, Plato gives us this very famous image of language, and he explains that language can be personified by the god Pan, who is half man and half goat. And he talks about how there are two parts to language. There's the upper divine part of language that's associated with logos, and there's the lower, more bestial, goat-like, hooved, I guess, version of language that's associated with falsehood and with mythos. So even within language itself, language carries within it the capacity to give us both mythos and logos. And even though we often see them translated as logos as truth and mythos as falsehood, it's a lot more complicated than that. You know, mythos is an inherent part of language. And mythos is something that it is just as vital to recognize, because language can carry within it the capacity for falsehood. We need to understand that when we look at language. And later on in Plato, if you look at Plato's dialogues, and even if you look at later texts, there's a text called Daphnis and Chloe by Longus. It's one of the earliest, what we would call novels ever written. It's this beautiful pastoral romance. And the two main characters are learning, and they hear a story, a mythos. And the narrator comments that the children are too naive to understand that the mythos is also a logos. So stories and myths can actually contain within them some kind of truth. The trick for Plato, and then especially for Longus, is that we need to recognize the inherent capacity of language to illuminate and to mislead. And we have to dig deeper into them in order to understand what we should believe and what we shouldn't. So it's more about recognition than something that should be avoided. It's something that we just need to learn to recognize, but can actually be a useful tool in order to teach. I mean, we use stories all the time in order to illustrate different ideas.
Thank you.